Let's say you're a PM at Nike and you've noticed site-wide conversion has declined year over year. What do you think are some of the causes and how would you evaluate this? Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Wei. I'm a product manager at IBM Data and AI. And today we have a mock PM interview with Jeff Lee. And before we jump into today's question, Jeff, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi guys. I'm currently a product manager in Silicon Valley at an early stage startup, helping to launch a product from idea to initial launch. Prior to joining the startup, I was at Autodesk for about 5 years, working on 3D design software.
Awesome. Well, we're super excited to have you. And today we'll be doing a root cause analysis type question. For this question, let's say you're a PM at Nike and you've noticed site-wide conversion has declined year over year. What do you think are some of the causes and how would you evaluate this?
Okay, great. So give me a second to jot down some notes, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so first, some clarifying questions. So I guess when we say conversion, do we have a specific definition of conversion?
Let's say that customers are coming, they're adding items to the cart, but we're seeing that more customers are not checking out.
Okay, got it. So we'll just say conversion is basically full checkout. Great. And then when we say site-wide, are we implying everything on because are we implying the e-commerce side of Nike's business?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so I got that. And then, so I guess in this, I'm gonna think about some ways that I might evaluate why this metric is declining. And then I'll mention how I might actually evaluate or dig into those hypotheses. Does that sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay, awesome. Okay, cool. So I've got a couple ideas here on why conversion rates have maybe dropped for Nike on their e-commerce side year over year. So I've got a couple questions and I'll have some recommendations on how we can evaluate them. So the first one is I might want to evaluate on whether or not customers are purchasing in other streams. So that might mean, are they buying, how are they buying? Are they buying via mobile versus web? You already kind of mentioned that this is specifically for e-commerce, but I'm kind of also curious to see if their purchasing trends have changed in retail and brick and mortar stores. So that's the first question that I would probably ask.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we can say that because of COVID, it's safe to assume retail is down and mobile and mainly desktop web is up.
Okay, so retail down, and let's say mobile is down, you said?
And web is up.
And web is up. Got it. Okay, cool. Okay, got it. So that's one thing that we can take a look at. So for example, because we're specifically focusing on site-wide, you might assume that retail being down might be a leading indicator for your mobile versus web, purchasing trends or conversion rates. It sounds like because mobile is down as well, but web is up, maybe mobile is outweighing the percentage of web purchases going up. So overall site conversion might be going down. But let's move on to the other questions and maybe we can circle back on it. So I'm curious also to know if we feel like e-commerce as a whole has gone down. So obviously it sounds like year over year right now, Nike conversion rates have gone down, but do we see industry-wide trends that are similar, or is it just Nike that's experiencing something like this? The reason why I'm asking is I'd love to know if we can segment it down to maybe it's the shoe industry, or maybe it's just e-commerce as a whole. People aren't buying on web because of COVID, or maybe they're buying more and we're the only ones not reaping the benefits. Just kind of curious to see what we might figure out from that analysis.
No, we don't notice any significant changes here.
Okay, so no significant changes. Okay, and then so let's dig into mobile versus web a little bit more. So you mentioned that web is up and mobile is down. Do we know? Do we notice? Or I guess are those trends measured year over year as well? So we're noticing mobile is down year over year and web is up year over year. Is that what you're saying?
So year over year, we can say that web is up
Okay.
and mobile is the changes are not significant.
Okay, got it. Interesting. So we can say changes aren't that significant for mobile and the web is up. So there must be something else that's causing conversion rates to go down overall. Okay. So let me, I guess the next thing I might ask is, have we offered or changed our product offerings at all? So obviously I'm assuming from Nike, there's things like shoes and apparel and gear and even equipment. But I'm kind of curious, have we kind of changed what our offerings look like, what personas we're going after? That might give us some clues as to, what variables we've been changing and how they might be impacting our overall metrics.
Yeah, this is an interesting thing. So we have recently added a new section,
Okay,
a more high-end boutique section on the e-commerce website.
got it. So high-end section, let's call it a boutique section, like you mentioned. Okay, and I can probably safely assume that this is the cost of these items are on average is probably a lot higher than the items before this was added.
Yeah, the cost is on average higher.
Okay, got it. So average cost is higher. Okay. Are there any UI or UX changes in terms of being able to search for items, select and compare them, add them to your cart, and even the checkout process itself? Any major changes?
No, there are no significant changes to the interface or the user experience.
Okay, no significant changes. Are we noticing that customers are returning and purchasing again after they've purchased once, or do we notice that there's any significant changes on recurring or returning customers?
So we can say that in general, customers are coming back and there's no significant churn here that we have to look out for.
Okay, got it. And then are we noticing any new competitors by any chance? Do we notice anybody in this space that we're trying to compete with or go after? Considering that we're Nike, obviously there's a lot of apparel and sports companies, but just kind of curious if there's any particular brand that we're trying to tackle with our new product offerings or anything along those lines.
Yeah, so we actually do consider some luxury apparel as competitors now. So you can think maybe a concrete example would be Adidas Yeezys.
Okay. Got it. So we can compare ourselves with Adidas Yeezys. Okay, cool. So let's see here. I guess to follow up, are we noticing if customers are, do we notice any changes in, I guess, the time on platform or in cart? So what I mean by that is, are customers adding products to the cart and then they sit in the cart for some time? Do we notice that there's significant changes of that over time? Or is that generally the same as before? Just kind of curious.
So when we look at customers, I'll turn this back to you. So if given the two options, right, items in the cart being left for a while or no significant changes there, what would you do differently as a PM, or what would you look at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if items were left in the cart more or less, I would try to take a deeper dive and understand what types of items is that happening with. So to see if we can again segment the problem even smaller. The reason being is you've mentioned before that we've added a new product line. We're trying to tackle and address, a competitor like Adidas Yeezys. And maybe because it's new, people might be having some confusion, or they might be having some, I won't call it buyer's remorse, but whatever comes before that. So maybe some paralysis when it comes to purchasing. So I'd love to see if that's possibly a cause for people not buying and not actually converting over to end purchases. If that wasn't the case and people weren't paralyzed, we might look at other streams and other reasons to maybe identify the problem a bit more.
Okay. Yeah, we can say that there might be some analysis paralysis, or there might be some items being left in the cart for extended periods of time that are above the normal trend lines.
Okay, great. And do we notice if that's specifically for our new product lines? Do we notice that's happening for that product line by any chance?
Yes, we do see that it is significantly happening more to these new boutique items.
Cool. So great. So just as a recap, it sounds like overall most things are the same except for a couple of key changes. It sounds like obviously there's some purchasing trends that are different because of COVID. So we're noticing retail is down, mobile is a little bit down, but it sounds like not significantly, and web is up. But we are noticing that, we have noted that there is a new high-end boutique product line that we're offering at this time. So that's a major change in our product offering. And we're actually doing that so that we can compete with, a competitor like Adidas Yeezys. We're also noticing that some people are getting hung up on when they add those types of items, those boutique items to the cart, and they're getting some analysis paralysis in purchasing. So that might be one reason why they're not actually converting, is because they're seeing a new item and they're having trouble making a final decision on whether or not they can purchase. So let's see. I think overall, there's a lot of leading indicators to point towards that as a potential hypothesis. So that's the hypothesis that I'll suggest forward, is that because we are now offering a new product line that hasn't been fully explored yet, people are having some trouble buying or completing the purchasing process when they're adding these luxury items to the cart. It might be because they are still comparing other items that are high-end boutique. Maybe they're comparing it across to other competitors, or maybe because it's just pricier overall and people tend to be a lot more conservative with their spending. They might be a little bit more reluctant to actually hit that purchase button and commit to spending the money. So I think right now it sounds like, from our initial exploration of the potential causes of our dip in conversion rate, it sounds like the high-end boutique items are probably what's causing the issue.
Yeah, that is a pretty accurate insight. So
Okay.
why don't we take this one step further and think, now that we have this insight uncovered, what might be something that you would do to remediate this problem?
Okay, got it. Give me 1 second. Let me think about that some more. Okay, great. So some of the pain points that I've identified from these people that are getting hung up on eventually purchasing these high-end boutique products. The first one is just confidence in their purchase. So knowing that they're getting a quality item and having that kind of cold feet when it comes to committing is a big issue for them. So thinking about how we could instill some confidence in their purchasing and make it okay for them to actually purchase. The second thing is kind of this idea behind, I call it like social validation. So because it's a new product line, people don't know if it's actually any good. Versus, the other, like for example, Air Jordans that have been around for such a long time, people know it's a trustworthy brand. But because this is a new product line, there may not be enough, social validation or really just reviews on the product itself for people to have confidence and be comfortable purchasing. And then the last thing is they might be spending a lot of time comparing this brand new product to either existing products or even other high-end boutique products. So those are kind of the three pain points that I'm looking to solve. A potential fourth one is price, but I think in this case, we're probably not going to price these products differently. It seems to be in a different price band and tier. Obviously, if you price it cheaper, people would tend to buy more, but I'm going to be eliminating that from the pain points that I'm considering. So some suggestions to fix these three major problems. In terms of confidence in purchase, it's really just making sure that the buyer is okay with buying this item, especially because it's online and they don't get a chance to try it on. So maybe we can just reinsure that our return policy or trade-in policy is up to snuff, or is really visible when they're purchasing, or we give them a chance to exchange it for any other item in the store, hassle-free. no questions asked, really hammer in or hammer home that customer service aspect of it, just so that people are a lot more comfortable when they purchase. You see companies like Amazon doing this pretty successfully, where they kind of basically have this, and even Costco, they have this kind of no questions asked return and exchange policy, and it makes people more confident in buying because they know that they can take it home and try it before they commit. The second thing is something as simple as adding a review system for those new items. Obviously, there's already a review system for the previous Nike items that people have already purchased and used. This is even more so important because it's a brand new item, and you don't have a lot of confidence when you go to a page and there's been no reviews and nobody's purchased it, and you're basically the first guinea pig trying to buy that boutique item. So either I'm thinking of some ways that we might incentivize getting the reviews, or maybe offering a discount for the first person to review or something like that might be something we could consider. Basically, as many ways as we can to gather reviews as soon as possible, so that other buyers in the future have a bit more confidence and understand what it's like from a buyer's perspective to actually purchase and use this boutique item. And the last thing is just simply a comparison tool. I think of, for example, Apple, when you purchase the iPhones and you're trying to compare specs between all of the three. I think just something as simple as that to compare even within the boutique items, or from a boutique item to a legacy Nike item might be really helpful. So for example, if the boutique item is shoes, we might want to compare all the colors, all the prices, materials, and things like that, just so that people can get a snapshot view of what they're looking at before they purchase. It's a little bit harder to do than something like a device, because device have specs and they're measurable, and this is more along the lines of fashion, which is subjective. But still, I think some people might want to know whether or not I'm purchasing a shoe that is meant for, let's say, cross training, or maybe another shoe that's meant for like walking or tennis, for example. So that just might be really helpful for a snapshot of information that might be really helpful for the purchaser. So I would say those three things. So again, that's really robust return and exchange policy that's more upfront and prevalent from a UI perspective, so they know that they're confident in purchasing and returning. A more robust, or I guess a more friendly review system that encourages first-time buyers to review as soon as possible. And then lastly, a comparison tool that just makes sure that these new items that are now added to the catalog are compared to other comparable items, and maybe even competitors as well.
Okay. So I'm curious about the comparison tool, in the sense that what would you be comparing specifically?
Yeah. So I think initially I would be comparing all the, I guess the customizable parts of the shoe. So what I mean by that is, knowing what sizes are available, knowing if they're meant for men or women, or if they're unisex, knowing what style they are in general, if there's a style category within Nike, knowing colors, knowing main materials, knowing what brand line they're a part of. I mean, because you mentioned it's a boutique item, I'm assuming it's going to be its own brand. So I would like to maybe compare something like this with something like a Jordan. And because I might know Jordan more, I might lean towards buying Jordan, or maybe because I didn't like Jordans, I might lean towards buying this new boutique item. So those are some things that might help me. And then overall, just a rating. So kind of pairing that with a review system. If I know that these boutique items are getting really rave reviews, maybe having like a top testimonial or even just a 5-star review would be really helpful for me to just get a snapshot and understand if I'm buying the right item versus something else. It's probably a little bit more difficult to compare very similar items, but I think if you're purchasing one shoe and another shoe that are similar in price, but one shoe is like really poorly rated, then obviously, there's a lot higher likelihood that you'll buy the shoe with a better rating, even though the other shoe might have the color that you like or whatever, for example.
Okay. Yeah, because I get the iPhone comparison in the sense that you're comparing specs.
Right.
But I guess with shoes, you might just be comparing colorways and
Yeah.
available sizes. Okay. So given these three potential ways to rectify the solution, would you say that there's one that you would recommend?
Let's see. So I think of the three, The one that I would I would probably recommend would be kind of a review system or a social, kind of a social validation feature. And the reason why I say that is because something like returns and exchanges probably already exists on Nike somewhere, even if it's not as prevalent on specifically the boutique items. And then a comparison product may or may not already exist as well. And there's a way that you can do that currently. You can already go and you can always just pull up multiple tabs and compare it that way. So it's doable. It's just a little bit harder. Reviews are a little bit tougher because you either have them or you don't. So I think maybe adding in a feature to incentivize people to review them for the first time, whether that's a cost incentive or maybe making them a part of some Nike community, kind of how Yelp Elite has their community. But really incentivizing the community to come together and give their own reviews and insight into a product would be really helpful, because then you don't feel like you're the first one, first guinea pig or first penguin diving into like the icy cold waters, right? So I think that's really, really important when it comes to buying, especially when it's something in terms of fashion, because there's so much cultural significance to it, that I think, having people that are saying, yeah, this is a cool item, you're more likely to buy it.
Cool. Thanks for that, Jeff. And
Yeah.
so before I give my feedback, looking back, would love to hear your self-reflection, how you think this mock interview went.
Cool. So I think that we'll start with the first half in terms of the root cause analysis. So I think what went really well was going through and exploring a bunch of different reasons that might pertain to why conversion is happening or declining year over year. I think what I liked about my answer in particular was I tried to go with macro and micro. So macro meaning things like the economy and external factors to Nike, like COVID and things like that. And then micro in terms of like, what are we as Nike doing differently, and how can we segment our problem to really compartmentalize and figure out what's going wrong. So I like that part of my answer in general. And I also like that it seemed like there were some recurring themes in terms of the answers that I was getting. It sounded like the boutique items happened to be hitting on a lot of the hypotheses that I had. So it gave me a lot of indicators, strong indicators that this is probably causing some change in our conversion year over year. In terms of, I guess, the product design portion of it, where I was promoting features, that one was a little bit harder for me, only because it seems like a lot of the solutions that I suggested were probably already existing in some way, shape, or form, and I was maybe recommending some slight improvements on them. So I wish that I had thought of a bit more novel features that I could promote and suggest, so that we could get more people to buy these boutique items that maybe aren't buying before.
Yeah, I think the idea of macro to micro is a good approach. Another one is thinking about internal and external factors, and maybe starting with internal factors since they're easier to predict and understand.
Right.
But macro, micro definitely works too. And you did do a pretty good job of identifying that it was a new product line that was causing this. So in this case, the luxury apparel section. And I think that when it comes to the product design, it is, you might want to think about assuming some of these things that don't exist. So for example, like assuming a review system doesn't exist, that might be something that would be good to clarify first, to ask if, because I think it's pretty standard for e-commerce to already have review systems. But I think also, the pain points you pinpointed were pretty spot on. Giving confidence in case they have cold feet, social validation, and allowing customers to have a way to compare. I think, if, given more time, I think that one thing that would be good to keep in mind as we're brainstorming solutions is to think how the user persona is different, how folks who purchase high-end apparel may be different than folks who purchase regular Nike apparel. There might be some differences in needs there and how they behave. But Overall, I really like the approach, and thanks again for being on today's show. Super
Yeah.
valuable. For the viewers, if you have a different approach to this question, leave a comment, and we would love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for tuning in, and good luck with your upcoming PM interview.